so today we're going to be diving into stick notation and then how to transfer that onto standard notation. So first of all, for stick notation, we've got our two main rhythms that we've been starting with, which is ta and tt. Reminder that ta gets one sound per beat and tt gets two sounds per beat. Now when I'm writing out a measure, I'm always going to start with my time signature. And for now we're learning in 4/4. So the first number, the top four, tells us that there are 4 beats per measure. Okay, so I'm going to draw my beat lines right here, and there is space for 4 beats in one measure. After that last beat, I'm not going to be able to fit in any more beats, so I'm going to draw a bar line or a measure line to show the end of that measure. And today we're going to be doing a total of 4 measures, so let me just go ahead and write in all 4 measures that I'm going to have, making sure there's a bar line at the end of each measure. At the end of my last measure, I'm going to do a double bar line, with the second line being extra thick to show that this is the final line of the song. Now, back at the beginning again, the bottom number tells us what type of note gets 1 beat. And in this case, we're going to say a quarter note gets 1 beat, which is represented by our ta. So a ta would fill in an entire beat. Tt would be 2/8 notes, which also fills up an entire beat. And let's say I'm going to do this. Okay, that would fill up our entire measure, each of those getting 1. Now I just have to choose what notes I'm going to do on each beat. So let's say I'm going to start with C here on the first ta. And then let's say I'll do E, 2 Ds, and an F. And again, this is where it's up to your creative ideas of whatever you want to do. This is your song to compose. So I'm choosing those notes. If I were doing a specific song, I would have to follow the notes of that song. But since I'm just making this up, I'm going to go ahead and keep going. Let's do lots of TTs in this one. And I'm going to keep doing the same note on each TT, because otherwise it could be pretty fast, and I don't want to have to switch notes that fast yet. Okay. I'm going to keep doing. I'm going to decide to do some form here. So if we haven't talked about form yet, we will soon. Form is the repetition that goes out throughout the song. So if this is my first measure, I'm going to call this measure A. Okay. Measure A is a ta, ta, ti, ti, ta with the notes C, E, D, D, F. This next measure is different. It's not the same, so I'm going to call that measure B. Okay. This third measure, I'm going to decide to copy it and do another A. Okay, this is very common along lots of songs. Like we'll talk about Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. The first section of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star is Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, how I wonder what you are. Okay. The B section is Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. And then we go back to the A section, repeat that. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. And that the third and the first section are the exact same, so we call that A and A. Okay, so I'm going to copy this measure over, just like this, and I'm going to do the same notes as well. All right, and for my last measure, I'm going to do this as a C section, so it can be totally different from anything I have so far, and I can write whatever I want. I'm going to go with T, T, ta, T, T, ta. And let's use the notes F, D. Here I'll give myself a challenge of playing 2 notes on the same beat, TT, but each note is different. And then I'll end with C. All right, so now I have my full 4 measures. So hopefully you've been able to do that so far as we've gone from our beats and time signature, our notes, and our bar lines, filling in whatever rhythms you've chosen. Okay, so those are some of our vocab words. We have beat, we have time signature, we have rhythm, we have notes or pitches, we have bar lines or measure lines. Don't forget our final bar line as well. And then we have form, the A, B, A, C. The next thing we're going to add as we go to standard notation is the staff. and the clef that we're going to use. So by now we've learned treble clef. Treble clef is going to look like this. I'm going to start that on my staff. Practice drawing that. I want to make sure that that circle goes around the second line here, which is emphasizing the line G. Okay, if you decided to draw bass clef, you could draw that backward C and make sure that those colons go around the middle line here for F. But for now, I think we should stick with treble clef. I'm still going to add in my time signature after that, my 4/4. You can pick a different time signature if you'd like. The top number is going to tell you how many beats per measure. The bottom note is going to tell you what type of note gets a beat. So the bottom can only ever be a 2 or a 4 or an 8 for what we're learning. Okay? An 8 would mean an eighth note gets a beat, meaning one TT or one of those T's. The 4 means a quarter note, and the 2 would mean a half note. So if you want to make sure only a half note can fit in each measure, you can do that if you'd like. And if you want to do a top number, which is one I would recommend changing if you're looking for a challenge, you could change that to a 3 or a 5 or a 6 or whatever number you can dream of. Most commonly, we're going to see 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. All right, and that's how many beats can fit in one measure. So, and I'm going to transfer this over here. Now, the trickiest part about stick notation versus standard notation is the notes, because this stick is going to be the exact same. So if I have a C, I'm actually going to draw the same stick, but where I draw it is what changes. I'm not going to label my letters anymore on this staff. I'm going to use what's called the note head, which is this black filled in circle right here. Okay? And that black circle is telling me where my note is going to be. Based on the staff, if I'm in treble clef, we use the sentence, every good bunch deserves fudge, in order to remember the lines on the staff. And we use the word face to remember the spaces. Face rhymes with space. So right here I have my C. So I drew my dot in that same space, and that's how I know that this note is going to be C. I don't have to label the letter C there anymore, because I can tell just based on where it is on the staff. And then I'm going to add my stick. As we go throughout, we're going to talk about a couple rules that you have to follow about what direction and where your stick goes. Okay? So, for example, if I'm up here for E, I'm going to use this E. There are two, but I'm going to choose this one. It goes up here, and I'm going to draw my note head right in that space. I'm going to draw my stick going down. Whenever my stick goes down, it's going to go down on the left side of the note head. It's never going to go down on the right on this side, because that would just be backwards. It's just the rules. Okay, I didn't make them, someone else did. All right, so how I remember that is I remember that I'm drawing the shape of the letter P, a lowercase p, if you will. Okay, and if I draw that shape, I'm always going to be right. Now, I could also have drawn the E down here on this low E right here. And if I had chosen to do that, I would have drawn my note head right on the stick, or right on the line there, and I would have drawn the stick going up. Now, why would I have to do the line up? Well, because if I did it on the left, it would come down here and it would cut into the space of this staff down here. So I don't want to do that. Okay, so I'm always going to go towards the middle of the staff. So if I find this middle line right here, the B line, okay, I'm always going to draw my sticks towards that line. So either up on the right or down on the left. So if we're up on the right, that'd be making the shape of the lowercase letter D. So I always say P or D are the letters I'm drawing. If I actually draw a 9 or a Q and then a B, I've done it backwards, and those are just wrong. So we're going to avoid doing those, make sure we do P and D. And however you want to remember P and D, that's totally up to you. All right. Now, some people ask me, what do I do if the note is on the line B? And we'll talk about that when we get there, okay? So, I've got my E here, and I'm just going to keep going. I've got D next. I've actually got two Ds, so I'm going to draw two note heads on the line for D, right here. And then, since these are above the middle line, I'm going to draw down and on the left side. And because it's a TT, I'm going to draw that stem connecting them right here. All right, and the last note for this measure is an F, which is right up here and down on the left, just like that. I've now completed my measure, so I'm going to draw in a bar line from the very top line to the bottom line of the staff. And that is our first measure completed. All right, so now I'm going to go through and do the same thing for my next three measures. If I had run out of space on this top staff, I could have come down here. but since I only have 2 staffs, I'm going to keep going right over here on the next spot. So I'm down here on G for a TT. So I'm going to draw in 2 note heads, and the sticks need to go up on the right to give us that shape of the letter D. And because it's a TT, I'm going to stem them and connect them like that. I'm going to do the same things on D, and then we're up to B. All right. Next up, we have 2 Bs. And what happens when the note is on the middle line? Because I can't draw towards the middle line, otherwise I wouldn't have a stick at all. Well, this is where you can just totally choose whatever you want. You can either go up on the right like this, or you could go down on the left like this. It's totally up to you. Okay, I'm going to choose to go down because my last one was also down, and so I'm going to keep it going the same direction. And then finally, I'm going to end with C on a ta, or a quarter note, right here. And this is the last note of the measure. So I'm going to add in a bar line. Since I see that this is going to be the last measure I can fit on this staff, I'm going to go ahead and draw it all the way over here. So then I'm going to come back here. Now I'm going to start what's called a new system. This was system 1, and this was system 2. Okay, so a new set of staff. Since I'm starting a new system, I'm going to have to add in my clef again to make sure that everyone knows we're still in treble clef. If you wanted to switch clef, you could do that as well. I don't, however, have to copy my time signature over because we're assuming that it didn't change from 4/4. If it did, I would have to write in a new time signature there. So I'm going to keep going here. I'm now on my measure 3, so I'm just going to copy over what I had here. So I can literally look right above and copy what I have there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Boom. Measure 3 completed. I'm going to make that a little thicker since it got hid behind the line. And now I'm going to do my 4th measure, which is F, F, D, and then I have B, G, C. So I'm going to start with a TT on F. So I'm going to find where that F is. Reminder, every good bunch deserves fudge. So it's on the top line right here. So I'm going to have a total of 3 Fs in a row. I'm going to connect them like that. Then I have a ta on D. So just 1 note for ta, quarter note. Next I have B and G. So I'm going to draw first my note head on B and second on G. And now remember with B, we get to choose what direction the stick goes. But because I know this is going to be tied together with G, and G would have to go up, I'm going to put both going up, like that. And you can either draw a straight line, or I think it looks a little nicer to have the top line at an angle, like this, so that each of these sticks is the same height. All right, and my very last note is going to be a quarter note on C. So I'm going to draw that and stick going down on the left. Since this is the very last measure, I'm going to draw a thicker line and a thinner line. All right, and there you have it. I have my complete full song. The only other things I could add here is I'm going to choose to add some dynamics. So let's say I'm going to start this at a mezzo piano or a medium soft volume. I'm going to play that for the entire first measure. Measure 2, though, I'd like to have a crescendo. So I'm going to draw a long crescendo for the entire length of measure 2. By then, I'll probably be at around a mezzo forte or forte dynamic. I'm going to assume that I can remember that. Down here, though, I'd like to change. I'm going to go back to mezzo piano. And then I'd like to be suddenly fortissimo for this last measure, and piano for this very last note. It's going to sound a little wonky, but I think it'd be fun. Okay? Actually, let's add a little decrescendo in this measure. Last thing I have to do is name my piece. Okay? I'm going to call it Song for a Banana. I'm going to write my name over here because I'm the composer. Here we go. I have a full song. I went from stick notation to standard notation using all of my vocab words and my pitches and my rhythms.